Hey guys, welcome to another session of Epic 7. This is my initial thoughts video for Inferno Khawazu, or ML Khawazu as I may refer to him. Throughout the video, as his information was released, it was released with the same on the same week for Ilanav, for the Fire Knight. I made my initial thoughts video on her, and definitely comparing the two, Inferno Khawazu has definitely got my attention. I think it is the one that has gotten most people's attention. Ilanav, just because she's a waifu, does not necessarily mean that your optimistic lens, has to be scaled up. But Inferno Khawazu, I don't think anybody is questioning his usefulness, and I definitely think he's going to be very, very useful, very effective right off the bat. Just a pretty loaded kit, and I can definitely see him used in many, many scenarios, whether that be PvP on offense, so like Guild War offense, Arena offense. It could be usable in situations in RTA as well. I definitely think that he will be up there, probably as high as Tempest Siren. They don't do the same thing, but I can definitely see him being used as much as Tempest Siren is. She never really fell off. There's a lot of heroes to choose from, but she's still there, and I can see that he might be used a lot more. If you are on the Researcher Carrot or Specialty Change Carrot bandwagon, it's not really a bandwagon. She is as good as she seems. She's actually loaded. During this free equip event, I did gear mine, 6-starred her because of the ML connection thing. She's fantastic. I'm making her own showcase video, kind of like a post-buff showcase video on her right now, and she's just too good. She's actually too good. I don't know if Smoggy is gonna consider nerfing her. She's actually too good. But that being said, if you're used to her burn damage, you will get a closer sense to how much Inferno Khawazu will work for you as well. A lot of people are referring to him as like the ML version of Carrot. Not necessarily the same in my opinion, but he's just as hard to kill. So anyways, here we go. So first things first, we have him. He's a warrior and Scorpio, and of course Dark. Yeah, you'll say LQC counters him. LQC counters all the dark heroes, but that doesn't necessarily make him bad. He's actually very good. Warrior Scorpio is the same sign as Assassin Cartuja, which we haven't really gotten a 4-star Warrior Scorpio in a long time, but for those who have played the game as long as myself, Assassin Cartuja used to be one of the most influential ML4s because evasion was just really hard to deal with unless you had Oath Key. But regardless, they share the same stats. So Assassin Cartuja, I've seen him being built as a bruiser, like a real DPS. I've seen him being used as just an annoyance, super high speed and just high tankiness, like hard to kill. And he shares those same stats, so that's what makes him already like ahead of the ball curve in terms of just stat allocation. As you can see there, the attack is at 1119, the health is at 6091, so it's pretty high for 4-star, and then 100 speed, so that's pretty good. So you can get him to a 200 speed, 220 speed pretty easily, and also being able to focus on like what he needs, which is high attack and bulk. His defense is at 594, so again, very, very solid for a 4-star hero. The crit rate is at 15%. His whole kit doesn't require him to have crit, so that's actually okay, no wasted stats there. And then effectiveness, he hardly needs effectiveness as well. Some people do build their Researcher Carrot with effectiveness, some people don't. There is argument on both, and I would agree on both. I don't necessarily think that he needs it because of how his kit reacts, but of course if you can have a splash in there, I'd say it wouldn't hurt. His imprint concentration is a 14% attack, so that's really good. On his base attack, he would most likely be getting about 150, 160 attack additional to your total, so that's very, very good. Being a 4-star, easier to obtain Fire Khawazu, or even heck ML Khawazu as well, as you're pulling for your Moonlight bookmarks. I was actually gonna plan on just spamming all the Galaxy bookmarks that I've saved up. I have about like 8 or 9 pulls. Now I'm saving it just because Inferno Khawazu, when he's gonna get dropped, I mean, most likely, don't quote me on this, but most likely he will be coming back with Ruel's return, as the RTA season is gonna be closed, I think within a month at least. He'll most likely be the 4-star ML that will accompany her banner. I could be wrong, but most people are, you know, kind of getting the pattern, and that is more or less the prediction. For those who don't have Ruel, it's like the perfect banner. He's very, very good. Let's just say that right now. If a hero is really good, and I don't need to question it, they're gonna be very good. And all the community that I've heard of is just super hyped about his kit. Unfortunate for like people like myself is that if I already have a Ruel and the imprints are pretty high, it's like, do I want to use my pity? And I mean, if you guys watch my summon videos, you know how desire meter works. Every time I desire the opposite, I always get what, you know. So anyways, if I want him, I'll most likely get Ruel if I get an ML. Let's not be too presumptuous, but that's just how it works. But either way, I'm gonna try to pull for him because I can see him, like I said, being used in a lot of my PvP strategies, and he'll be a very solid pocket pick in very good scenarios. Now doubling up, there's so many Dark Elemental warriors right now that do cleansing, but I'm not necessarily saying that you have to have a warrior doing the cleansing, but you just have so many heroes now that is just like less risky than someone like, let's say, Champion Zerato. You know what I mean? If they do AoE debuffs, he'll be one of them. He'll be one of them because he packs a punch, and he'll just be able to cleanse whatever like a specific condition here when we talk about the S2, but a very, very good condition. One major gripe I always had about designer Lilibet, or Dilibet for sure, and when I made her initial thoughts video, and it held true in terms of what I observed. She is good, but the issue is that she only can cleanse after a certain amount of debuffs are done on your team. So if your team, usually, you know, at least endgame players, they'll run immunity, and if they resist and you don't get enough debuffs on the certain turn, you might not be able to get her to cleanse when you need her to. For like this prominent defense, like Cerise F10 kind of defense teams, like she basically just destroyed that defense. Once Dilibet landed, like those defenses are pretty much gone, and if they were there, they're mostly always gonna lose anyway. In terms of a defense comp, I'm talking mainly about Guild War. But Dilibet was really hard to use when there's only a very small amount of debuffs, or if you get resisted. But he just works right off the bat. Look at this. So Malicus's power S2. This is how the video presented it. When they introduced Inferno Khawazu, after suffering an attack that targets all allies. So any AoE, regardless if it does debuffs or not, but it gives you a dispel all debuffs from the caster himself and activates Blazing Fury. Can only be activated once every 2 turns. Blazing Fury, with an Outrage Cry, grants Vigor, a Vigor buff, to the caster for 2 turns before recovering health and increasing combat readiness by 20%. So 20% CR boost, very, very solid. And then also recovering health. You can see the skill enhance is giving him more healing. So he could be a decent counter cleave. Especially how people are cleaving, especially in RTA right now. He can actually be pretty good. So like, let's say for example, like Cerise can't actually restrict him because he'll cleanse it off. F10 he can't pin him down, he'll cleanse it off. He'll get the turn. And increase combat raise by 2. Yeah, and then amount recovered proportional to the caster's attack. And then because he's already burned hero, you're gonna build him with high attack. So like very straightforward stats, very straightforward builds. And then the Vigor buff, if you're not familiar with Fire Ken, Vigor buff gives you 30% attack and 30% defense buff. So not as high as a full attack buff or a defense buff, but 30%, and you can't dispel it. And just because even if you do like, let's say, a single target unbuffable on him, it wouldn't matter anyway, because if it's a single target unbuffable, he wouldn't trigger Blazing Fury. But let's say you put a Bazaar into him, and even though you do push him back 30%, he'll just be able to cleanse it off because it's an AoE, and he'll gain 20% of that back. So it's just like, and then he gets the Vigor anyway. So it's just like very, very strong S2. You can see it and used in multiple scenarios. And like I said, he already has that stat line where he can get that major bulk. So he won't be one shot in one turn in terms of an AoE attack. He can't be. So it's like it's too good. It's too good. The passive is actually really, really good. So it's 2 turns on the Vigor. So that's very important too, because of how the rest of his skills work. So Jealous Strike, it doesn't actually say here, I was a bit disappointed, but if you watch their video, they demonstrate this. Jealous Strike is the skill that he is allowed to soul burn. It is a 20 soul burn, but it grants you an extra turn. So it doesn't say this here, I think they missed it on the slide, but that's very, very important. So attacks the enemy with flames and 75%, up to 75%, as you can see if you +4 the Mola there. But I think he's a +15 hero. I think he's a +15 hero. Some may argue that, oh, he just sees burn damage, Jagan, he won't need the +5, +6. Yeah, I don't know. Well, it depends. Maybe some testing. Maybe you'll end up thinking that he'll need it. In my opinion, if he's gonna be a damage, mainly a damage DPS, he will definitely want the extra 20 damage, 20%. But 75% if you mold it to a +4 to burn for 1 turn. When the caster is granted Vigor, increases the effect chance by 25%. So that's 100% chance to burn. But of course, you need to go through resistance check. Inflicts 1 additional burn effect, so that's 2 burns. So in their scenario, they showcase that he does get hit with an AoE. He cleanses, he CR boost, he gets Vigor, and he already has an attack buff from their video, Operator Cigarette. I'll just show like the last slide here. Yeah, so you see that's his setting. And then of course, it's attack buff, a bit cheating, but attack buffer is now not super hard to fit into your comp. You got Operator Cigarette, you got Vivian, you got Maid Chloe, which is quite strong right now in World Arena as well. We just have so many different types of attack buffers now in all different types of scenarios. So like getting attack buff on him isn't super hard. General Purgus, of course, General Purgus being like one of the still very influential, especially he deals with AoE. General Purgus sort of deals with AoE as well. It's just like you don't want to AoE him. So like in certain scenarios, they can definitely be used as force bands, both of them together picked. And then yeah, so it's 100% chance, right? So if the Vigor is granted, it's most likely you're gonna bring him into a fight where the opponents trigger his S2. So let's just say he has Vigor, and so that's 2 burns at 100% chance. Very, very solid. And like I said, it is a soul burnable skill. So what you could do is, if they, let's say you strip them, if they don't have immunity or whatever, you could soul burn this, assuming you have someone holding Toggle's Ancient Book. You can soul burn this, you get the 2 burns at 100% proc rate, and then you get an extra turn to use the S3. And this is why they presented it in this order. Flames of Destruction, which is the S3, it is a 4-turn cooldown, but 3 turn if you mold to +2, so it's a very short duration. So his entire kit is just like insanely aggro, good sustainability, good damage, easy to build, and that's also another reason why I would recommend pulling him, especially if you don't have Ruel. Attacks the enemy with an Inferno, dispelling all buffs. That's amazing. This is a single target skill though. This is a single target skill, so it's not Carrot doing an AoE S3 and then dispels a buff and then you can apply the burn, but it's still really good. So in terms of like a single target nuking hero, he will become like one of the, I would say one of the go-tos. Single target nuking hero that can react to AoE damage. In fact, I just think about this, he could technically be a decent General Purgus counter too, actually, just thinking about that. But anyways, yeah, so dispelling all buffs, 75% chance to inflict 2 burns for 2 turns. So because it's 2 burns, 2 turns, that's, if you get both burns, that's 4 ticks of burns. So that's quite a bit of burn damage. I'm gonna pull up the damage calculator, as I've recently been doing, to showcase some of the kind of the theory crafts in terms of how much damage you'd be outputting. So it's very, very solid. At the end of the turn, detonates burn effects. So he'll detonate whatever burns that you have on. So like the scenario that Epic 7 painted is that he had, I guess he had book on Assassin, not Assassin, Archdemon's Shadow. Because like in the showcase, he burned the S1 first. So remember, he had an attack buff, he had the Vigor buff. The Vigor buff is 2 turns, so you can use the S1 soul burn while having attack buff, while having the Vigor buff, and the S3 will still have the vigor buff. So it dispels all the buffs, 100% chance to burn if you +3, and if you have vigor, ignores the effect resistance. So the ignore effect resistance here, the way it's placed is ignore the effect resistance for the dispel and the burn. So that's incredible. So like I said, you wouldn't really need much effectiveness if you wanted to take out, let's say, a high effect resistance hero, then maybe you want a bit. But then at that same time, it's like most effect resistance heroes are now 150 to 200 effect resist. So that would mean you need 50 or 100 effectiveness anyway. So it's like it might not be worth it. But that's the argument for people who build effectiveness on carrot, right? Like it's like, yeah, you can get that, or you can, you know, deny some stray people who build their DPS with some effect resistance. You'll find a lot less DPS with stray effect resistance in it, just because we got the substat gems now. But I mean, it did used to be a big concern. But yeah, so I mean, when you're building him, definitely it's like an experiment. But like, as I'm explaining this, I'm just like, I'm super stoked on it. You can hear it in my voice. Very excited about this kit. It doesn't seem super OP. Very straightforward. It's still conditional, but it's just like I said, like he deals with like AoE, and then he can self-sustain. He can burn and do a ton of damage. So he just needs a bit of setup. He needs either a healer or some kind of defense buffer, some kind of mitigation, either Aurace or Adamant Shield, and then attack buffer, and he'd be really set. I mean, that's how people are using Carrot anyway. But basically he just requires the exact same support that Carrot would have, but he's in a way a bit more aggro than Carrot. I would put it that way. Yeah, so I mean, I'm just looking at this, I'm still astonished. It just doesn't, it's not OP, but it's one of those heroes that are OP, we say it in air quotes. Like he's not air quotes as in sarcasm, but like he's OP, but he's not, you know what I mean? Like he's just good. He's just really good. This is the burn detonation. Now obviously burns do, it ignores defense, which means that it still requires a defense check. So if they have really high defense, and there's other sorts of mitigation like an Aureus, let's say the Aureus is on Last Rider Crow, which isn't common, of course the damage would be lower, but Adamant Shield of course is ignored, so none of that works. Like C Armand's damage reduction or Proof of Valor will reduce the damage of burn. I think it does, actually. I'm not quite sure. It's been a long time since I had that kind of interaction so specifically. I think it does, but leave it in the comments down below if it does or not. I think it does. Direct damage mitigation, but Adamant Shield, so crit damage mitigation would not work. So LQC's passive, Adamant Shield, like I said, 24,000 damage there. In the video, it was, I believe it was 4 burns. In terms of, there's 4 icons of burns, but then as you read in the S3, it's 2 turns, 2 burns, so that's 4 ticks of burn. That's quite a lot, so 24,000 damage. This is the S3. I like his design too. He was revealed last year, so his release is quite late in the year, but I like his, you know, his dreads, super cool. Way cooler than his bandana look for his fire elemental one. And then yeah, let's get into the damage calc very quick here. Let me jump in. So okay, so I have Inferno Khawazu selected on the top, as you can see there. 4,000 attack. It's like I said, it's pretty easy to hit. I would assume actually you could get higher than that. So his base attack is about the same as Carrot, like with her specialty change and whatnot. My Carrot right now is at 4,600 attack at 1475 defense and like 14,500-ish HP, somewhere like that. So I mean, you can definitely build them similar. He would have more defense and HP because I believe his base is higher for both, but HP for sure, but I think the defense is just as high, if about the same. Her specialty change does influence the stats, but roughly there. But I'm being very generous and saying that, let's say at 4,000 attack, right? No attack buff selected. As you can see, I can select the attack buff, but I didn't. I use my 1500 defense hero as like a baseline most nights, not all nights, but most nights we're running off of 1500 defense or maybe some bruisers, but regardless, give or take 1500 defense. Vigor though, I have cast it on in terms of I had checked this, because I do think that in most scenarios, if you're going to use them, the Vigor will pop. So like you're basically forcing them to AoE you, or if you bring him into AI comp, they're going to AoE you because you have control over that. Now the burn effects on detonate, this is the amount of burn as in per tick. I have set this to 4. If we go back to, here, one sec. If we go back to the S1, it is burn for 1 turn, but if you get the Vigor, you may get an additional 1. So technically, if it would be 6 burns total. So let's go back here again. I have it at 4. All right, just say at 4. I have included the detonation damage, or the data here, the S3. That's including detonation. All right, so that's not the base. So like if I turn this down, you can see that the damage is very low. So that is already showing the detonation power. You can see the burn damage here as I'm highlighting it. That's per burn, but then to detonate all at the same time, very good. But now check this out. So that's 4 burns, right? I'm saying that a maximum, if you got Toggle's Ancient Book, you're gonna get 6. But 4 burns is, let's say you just go straight to the S3. You don't have a book. You just go straight to S3. 4 burns first, okay? So let's do that. And then let's say they don't have increased damage. I can turn on damage transfer, Uberius. I can even turn on damage reduction too. Actually, you know what? When I was asking about like, hey, leave it in the comments down below, we could actually check it right here. If I turn on damage reduction, yeah, so it does work. So damage reduction, not crit damage reduction. So let's say Proof of Valor at 30% damage reduction, it will reduce it, not by much. You know what? I think that's the damage from the actual skill itself, not the burn. So that's very crazy, man. Okay, so damage transfer though. Yeah, there you go. So damage transfer with an Uberius. Yeah, so that will take it. So okay, so damage reduction does not reduce it, at least based on this calculator. If you know the real answer, again, leave it in the comments down below. Damage transfer, yeah, 20%, man. That's okay. So let's just say no Uberius. Most likely they will have Uberius. I mean, Uberius and damage mitigation is most likely drafted in World Arena if they're not cleaving. But let's say the crit damage, I have it at 150, so base, right? So like no wasted stats. And let's turn on the attack buff now. Okay, so I have the attack buff checked now at 4000 attack, and look at that damage. I have 4 ticks of burn, 17,000 damage on that already. This is with attack buff, of course, the Vigor, like I said. What about 6 ticks? If it's 6 ticks, 25,000. So you have a setup in, let's say, Guild War offense or something, and there was like a knight, I don't know, like whatever, like Last Rider Crowd hits him or whatever. Even though he has Death Pen or whatever, ML Khawazu has a lot of HP to pull off of. If you land, well, technically you need to strip him first because the strip is on the S3, so you wouldn't get 6 ticks, but whatever, let me not theorycraft the actual comp. But if you can pull off a Toggle's Ancient Book or Soul Burn, S1, you get 2 ticks, and then you S3 and you get all 4 ticks. Remember, ignore effect resistant at 100% rate. So you dispel and you get 4 ticks of burn right away, and then you detonate it to 25,000 damage. That's incredible. That's incredible. Let's stick to 4 ticks because I think this is the more realistic number. Let's turn on damage reduction. So like I said, like in World Arena scenarios, most people will have a damage transfer. So Uberius, so 14,000. You know what? That's not too shabby. That's not too shabby at all. And like I said, I was being very lenient on the attack. My carrot at a 4.6. So let's give him 4.5k, 16,000 damage. Regardless, I think he's just very, very solid in terms of being a single target nuke, being able to deal with like a debuffer or an AoE quickly. So like I think really realistically he can be used in how people are playing cleave right now. So Cerise opening, Operator Cigarette opener, Athletica opener even, because if you do AoE he does get a CR push. Of course you got to deal with that fact that she might be able to get a turn, so you have to do another way to deal with it. I do think that his passive, when it triggers, when he goes into Malicus's power, when he goes into Blazing Fury, it is a skill. I don't know. I'm not quite sure. It seems like Astral Guide, like Politis. So Politis, I believe Politis's Astral Guide, the passive, can proc someone like a Selene and another Politis. So I'm curious. I think this would proc. So in terms of, let's say, Selene, I think Selene will trigger. Selene's passive will trigger when he triggers Blazing Fury. So it would be interesting just to confirm that interaction. I'm 90% sure that it will, but I could be wrong there. Regardless, like I said, at 4.5k attack with an attack buff, not too hard to get right now. Like I said, so many attack buffer choices. He could be counter cleave, he could be counter control, because he can just kill a control hero really quickly, like a follow-up control hero. Let's say they double up on control. You can go Dilibet and him, and he can single-handedly probably deal with one of them. If he's quick enough, his 20% CR boost can just kill the second crowd control hero. Again, situational. There's nothing like a perfect image or whatever, but I think that, like I said, there's so many scenarios I can see him in right now in the meta, but because he's a burn hero, because he can self-cleanse, self-CR boost, is tanky, can self-heal, can strip, can apply burns without any effectiveness, he will be a hero that will be usable for a long time until they actually build heroes to counter him. Like he just deals with so much, he packs so much to the to his skill set. So very, very solid. I mean, if he was an ML5, I'd say the same thing I would say now, pull for him. But the fact that he's an ML4 is not guaranteed to get him. So the way he is, like if he was how ML Khawazu was, I would say ML Khawazu is a must-pull hero with 6-star base stats. Anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Hopefully that was informative. I'm gonna end this for the video recording. If you guys have Discord, check out the Discord server. Follow me on Twitter and subscribe to YouTube if you haven't. As always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.